This is Weird Renegade Witchesblog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. Of course, go to the Weird Renegade website. Understand that monthly lessons are ending this week. Start up again in the month of August. That's the monthly lessons. However, it doesn't stop you from contacting me in reference to one-on-one lessons that I work very closely with individuals in various different capacities. It could be from court to just doing regular work, so on, advocating, just having clear understanding, working very, very, very closely, and more. But understand that work is separate from the one-on-one lessons, but at times it's always incorporated, but always understand that's at a different cost. You also already know that I'm an underground occultist, and I do underground energy, spiritual psychology, all the above, work with individuals. I'm not going to get into the abortion frequencies, and however, you already know that I help out with those energies in what we call spiritual counseling, deprogramming from different various frequencies in life, okay? However, you already know that art is occultism. Occultism is a motherfucking art, and wayward is about the revenge, redemption, and responsibility. However, I have some questions. Am I tripping? What is the game? And again, I have to repeat that I am an occultist for some of you people who don't fucking get it. So when I'm talking about occult shit. And everything is occultism. I've been peeping all of this energy in reference to Muslims, Indians, and so on, and especially the fashion world, right? And they're really, really pushing the frequency. I was seeing in New York, allegedly, these Muslims blocked, I guess, the freeway. I don't know what the fuck they did. And I think it said Pennsylvania Avenue, but they said Brooklyn. And they came out in their, luxury vehicles and so on, right? I said, what's happening in this universal soul, right? And I said, okay. So we're understanding all of these capacities, even the frequencies in the fashion world. But when I thought about fashion, I keep going back to the pandemic, right? And during the pandemic, we had all of these conspiracy theories. We had all these energies in reference to coronavirus, COVID-19, vaccinations, the vaccination cards, being hijacked and remaining in the house, and all of this mess, right? And basically it brought in an energy, okay, of very demonic. And I had to really think about it. Remember, I talked about we're going to be under the energies of Aries. We got to talk horoscope because we got to think on their level. And we have to also understand when I'm talking Aries, I had to really work through it. And I said, this is an Aries feminine energy. So we're working under Aries woman. Okay? So I started to investigate a lot of energies going on, and I'm like, hey, how does the pandemic equate to this Muslim, Indian, Islamic movement? And you may think I'm above it all. I said the mask. I was tripping on the mask, right? See, we got bamboozled because we understand that Chinese people and people in certain countries or Asian countries, they wear masks, right? But something hit me, and I start matching up the hijabs, whatever they call it, or the ladies who have the full face covering with their eyes. You can only see their eyes. I said, bitch, they were grooming us. It's a cold game and a cold spell, right? And remember, we were seeing people wearing black masks, and I kind of tripped out when I seen Kamala Harris wearing a black mask covering her whole face, right, where her half of her face. Then we would see people basically covering their whole face, and you can only see their eyes, right? And we did not connect the dots that was a grooming period, that was a controlling period, that was a mind control energy, that was Costafo energy, that was tyrancy. To be honest with you, when that presidential election happened and they basically robbed Trump of the election and enforced Biden and then told us we better not talk about Biden, it started then. We over here just watching the manifestation of it. They all were in cahoots. They played Jedi mind tricks as Aries women play the Aries Jedi mind trick. See, there's a difference between the male Aries and a female Aries. And a female Aries play a lot of games. Okay? So therefore, when I'm looking at the energy, the time we figure the shit out is already fucked up. They didn't already snuck in their people. They didn't already hired them in positions. They didn't already bought up the hotels. They didn't already bought up businesses. They didn't already gave them housing. They didn't already gave them aid. They just keep bringing them in. The information that we're seeing now on social media, that shit probably happened years ago. We're only seeing the few that they let in, and then we have the audacity to have a certain attitude, right? But we have to understand they've been grooming us for this period. It's basically saying, look, don't get tripped. Don't trip about the Allah Akbar shit, and everybody tripping about whatever they're trying to push, because we didn't say nothing back during the pandemic. And when we tried to fight against it, they fought against you. You had people fighting you in grocery stores. You had people talking shit. You had people calling the police. You had people snitching. You had people ready to fight you. Do you understand that's going to be the future? That was a precursor. Do you understand, as women, that's bad? If this energy is trying to be pushed, and the American government and the worldwide is pushing this bullshit, that means they're going to try to create laws for us to be under this shit, and we can't go out without it. So therefore, if we're in a grocery store, we ain't got it on, you're going to have a snitch bitch sitting up there saying she doesn't have on her da-da-da-da. Or you going to have men aggressively coming at you, chasing you around for you to wear some bullshit. You better peep this game right here. That was a cold game and a cold piece of grooming. Okay? I thought that was very interesting, because everything matched, kind of like the previous period, the Holocaust, wearing masks. But this was a sleeper cell. This is a sleeper cell. The whole mask energy is a sleeper cell. Because this right here and that pandemic and creating all these the executive orders, we better reevaluate some of this shit, okay? And their agendas. The other energy is what everybody been talking about, is the energy with Jackie and Chantel, and I'm just now getting to it. I don't understand why people, especially black people, especially people on social media, talking about this. The reason why, because this was a Jedi mind trick. If you guys don't understand that in the universal soul, and I'm just going to be real layman, your secret society has created this type of agenda, this agenda of negative stereotypes and negative stereotyping among black women, I don't know what you don't understand. This is a cold game and a cold piece of spell work. First of all, Jackie has always had issues, and it's very clear Jackie has male issues and anger issues. I actually identify with Jackie, and I get it because she and I act up just the same. I've calmed down a lot. She's calmed down a lot. But what people don't understand, and the attack on her, is to keep saying she's a bad parent. I don't believe Jackie is a bad parent. I believe she's a selfish parent because she is a Leo. Okay? And Leos can be selfish parents. Matter of fact, they need parenting. And that's a whole other energy. I'm not saying all, I'm just saying what it is. What people don't understand is that Jackie is about that money. And there are many women who are about that money that they will abandon their children or the first batch of kids to hold on to that money. What it appears to me, it has nothing to do with a color issue. It looked like it has more to do with a money issue. That she didn't care too much about her father. And therefore her father didn't bring anything to the table. So he don't deserve to sit at the table if he didn't bring anything to the table. So I'd rather go on with my new man and my new children, and you be over there. Okay? Does that make you a bad parent? It could. White women do it all the time. They'll sit up and basically abandon and basically divorce their 3 other families for the next best thing. Men do it all the time, okay? And I believe what I'm seeing is that she'll deal with her daughter when she deal with her daughter, but I'm noticing a cycle. She has all these issues with her daughters, and it's always part of a storyline. And Evelyn is always involved. That's an agenda. Now this right here with Chantel, this is a ghetto hot homosexual mess. Okay, you heard what the fuck I said. First of all, to sit up there and have this type of ghetto ass shit on fucking social media is horrifying. And we just have to call it out for what the hell it is. When I'm hearing the back and forth, that is disgusting and is degrading black women, and is still putting black women as we are hypersexual hoes, and we don't have any idea of who in the fuck our children's fathers are. Okay? And the bottom line is this: that whole fucking scenario was degrading. Technically, at this point, Jackie and her family is considered boule, and I'm going to give them boule, aka bougie chic. They got some money, they got some shit going in a certain echelon. The thing about it is, how is a woman who's very protective over her man going to sit up and cheat on him? That does not go hand in hand. That does not compute. Okay? And Leos are not hoes like that. Now, therefore, if you would have talked to me and said that she was a Cancer, I might have side-eyed. If you would have said she was a Taurus, I would have doubled side-eye. If you would have told me she was a Gemini, I would have cross-eyed upside down and around. But when it comes up to that Leo, they have a different perspective of being a hoe. They'll do so much, and they will admit some shit. They'll be like, yeah, I fucked him over there, and him too. Who's the dad? I don't know, but you better. And I know that for a fact personally. So that's the energies we're seeing here, and it's very degrading. Because I said, oh, they playing in our face about this whole situation. This is psychological warfare. This is a cold humiliation ritual. And it's very disgusting because it happens to black women, especially on social media. If a black woman is not fighting each other, they are hoe. But they're not telling us that this is a movement, it's an agenda. It's that part that they they're leaving out. They are intentionally pushing these storylines to create spell work in the universe and to put a stain on people's brains. This is some psychological recycled ass shit that have been going on forever, especially since the Holocaust. It started during the Holocaust of putting black women in a position of being whores, sluts, harlots, all that shit, right? So, however, when I'm looking at this shit and I'm listening to Chantel call her mother a bitch and Jackie and bitch and da, I said, oh, wow. And telling the business was going on in the family, I said, that's a cold game and a cold piece of work. And then when I really started to study it, I said, that's very white girlish of her. White girls do that in the street and put their mothers on Front Street. Mom, why did you do that? You're such a whore. And I'm tired of you being a whore, mother. Oh, God, you make me sick, bitch. I wish I could just kill you. So white girl. Daddy, mommy here getting on my fucking nerves. I wish this bitch was die. She's always a problem. I've seen white people box up in the street. I've seen white mothers and white daughters. This is in San Francisco, so I guess some of y'all don't get to see the shit. Be fighting each other, rolling, fighting in the street. I was so busy watching so fucking hard, it was unbelievable. I was like, oh, wow. I made my sons come out. I said, come on out, look this. They were like, Mom, what's happening? I said, I don't know. Like fighting. He said, those are white people. I said, I know. Shit. Right? So where people really forgot is Jackie is an actress. Did y'all forget that part? She never hit Chantel. It was a move. It's all orchestrated. It's not real. It's just an agenda. They're acting. You guys should have known she was acting when she ran to them ladies and said that Jackie did that shit. I said, does she know people gonna look at this? I said, oh, it's an act. Who else they need to take off that fucking show with her emotions is Brittany. That girl is too triggered. Whatever's happened in her life, she too triggered. She's a psychopath and a maniac. But I'm saying these are the agendas that they are creating, right? The other interesting agenda that is very much being created is the fact that Glorilla allegedly got arrested. And here we go with the black woman again. She's a tramp, she's a whore, she's a booster, she's a thief, she's a drug addict, she's a dope seller. And it's like what I told you, either they put her ass back in jail because she got caught with something again, because I really believe that she's one of them type of entertainers. That she was supposed to go to jail anyway, and they said, hey, you want to be a rapper? You want to do da-da-da-da to stay your ass out of jail? Okay, do this over here. How do we know that who's the guy who signed her, that gaudy dude? They all don't sell whatever for some Muhammads. They signed them. He sell for them. She sell for him and them. Because black people, these black guys are not like old school niggas. They don't be owning their little record deals and finance and dope shit and doing basically underground banking. These are some different type of niggas. And they ain't down like that. They barely know that they're black. Because this right here with Glorilla, that doesn't make sense. If somebody called to say, hey, there's a burglary, then how in the fuck did they get in the house? And why would they be nosing around like that? But I can't say that because that happened to me. Some of them, I'm just saying hypothetically, some of them cops are nosy as fuck and will be walking around your place. That happened to me when what's her name almost set the house on fire. And we almost got caught up on some shit, some spiritual shit, because the cops were walking around the house and was going in our room, and they went and seen some shit up, of course, up in my motherfucking room, and and didn't tell us that they called the other police to check us out and had us hemmed up against the wall. I said, I thought I called for a fire. They was already being discriminatory and pressing. Because I guess they was trying to figure out our nigga asses up in this house. Right? So I know how cops can be. They did it to my brother. Somebody set the alarm off and my brother was being interesting up in the house and was growing weed. And my brother said when they came back, they went and clipped off the weed, the leaves. I said, for real? He said, yeah. So all of that is weird right there. Another humiliation ritual, right? We're just talking. Because we have to start talking about these energies. And what is with this art imitating life, a final destination? What is it with the MRI machine? Did y'all hear that story? I said, why are they emulating Final Destination and then it has to be a black man? Come on now. And we still not trying to understand that purge that happened in Philadelphia where they turned off 911 for a couple of hours and said, don't call into 911 until you get another emergency alert. I said, that's the purge. See how they grooming? See the energies that they pulling, right? The other energy that they playing games in our faces is, as we talk occultism and spell work, Spencer Pratt from Laguna Beach. Remember the show Laguna Beach? Spencer Pratt. So anyway, he lost his house or his family house over there in Palisades. And I keep saying we need to be watching this because it appears to me they are really using the Bible on us. They're using the fucking apostles energy where you have to pay the apostles, and if you don't pay the apostles, then you're considered a sinner and a liar. Right? So he's alleging that they done sat up, allegedly, then took his family's property from him. I said, that don't make sense. I said, so what are they grooming us for? That they could just come in and take our properties if there's an emergency that happens or that horrific fire? Because they can't just come in and take your property. What the fuck is really going on? And what is very interesting, what he showed a tunnel. He said, I didn't know all this time underneath this house that I've been living in, there was a tunnel. I said, so does that call that eminent domain? Where does that tunnel go? And is that how they taking people properties? And then he went to then there was a location where they had the city cleaning up, but the military. But then if people come in with their own cleanup crew, remember I said they want to charge them, and then they want part of people's insurance money. That's in the Bible. Again, paying the apostles. That means our gods are wrong. That means there's something going on in the legal system. That means there's a loophole, right? But we have to be careful when we're hearing these type of individuals talking, because that's grooming for something. That means that they're trying to condition our minds that if we have property, we don't own it. You should, I mean, Malibu's still fucked up, and they still not giving them people their property back. We don't even know what the fuck is going on in Altadena. They didn't sat up and act like these fires do not exist and did not exist. Like as if it didn't happen. That's a cold game, and that's a cold piece of spell work, and that's a psychosis, because that's playing with the mind. First, they have horrific things that happen, and then turn around and act like it didn't happen, and then don't report it anymore. So you got to look for the news for it. But here's the ass kicker. What I'm very much interested in is this affordable housing that they allegedly want to build, and some kind of energy or some kind of connection to Santa Monica. I don't know all the political energy. I say affordable housing. And I'm not being rude like that, but I'm like, that's an odd place. Kind of remind me of the projects in subsidized housing, and they'll go build the subsidized housing on prime real estate, and then come back later on, tear it down just to rebuild it with some luxury housing. What the fuck they doing? Very interesting, right? And then I'm very interested what the hell is underneath what's in the tunnels. The other part of it is, and what came out, is the thievery of Gavin Newsom. Because allegedly he didn't stole the fire money, which totals $100 million, allegedly. They said he stole 50 over here and then 50 over here. And I would like them to talk about how it would, like in West Hollywood, and I'm assuming Sunset Strip area, how they tearing down everything, but then building vendor machines, like a liquor store. So we're going to fuck CVS and Walgreens and those type of energies, and the man who owns a liquor store. We're just going to build something similar to the liquor store, but in a vending machine. I said, God damn. But you already know who's bought America, because only ones who would think of some shit like that are some third world motherfuckers, and you know who they are. The mixed company, the mutants, right? That's why they have that dang Tesla diner over there in Hollywood. My son asked me, he said, are you going to go? He said, I want to go, Mom. I said, I don't want to go to shit that take jobs from human beings. Oh, Mom, it's not like that. It's just robots. I really want to go. Looking like the Jetsons? No. I said, because I understand in Japan, they have the same thing going, a whole community. I was talking to a spiritual constituent. She was like, hey, there might be some joysticks. They playing with joysticks. That's the robots going. I said, for sure. I said, because there's a motherboard, and they out there watching people. It'll be another Dave Chappelle show. They asses be hiding up in the fucking wall and shit, in the damn ceiling, and fall through. Them damn robots be malfunctioning. The mixed companies, that's all they here for, is to devour the American and world's economy, because they are the new slaves, aren't they? We'll get to that. Right? What is very interesting as I getting into stuff is how it's coming out, and how they are telling on these entertainers, and they mainly focusing on Jay-Z and Beyonce. And what is very interesting, they're saying that they were never in the secret society. A spiritual constituent she forwarded me something talking about these secret society families. And I said, I hear what you're saying. I said, but when are people going to understand that these secret society families have been bloodsuckers sucking off the necks of black people all through their existence? Have stealing off the culture, the money, the wealth, the prosperity. They eat them, they kill them, they steal their money, they manipulate all just to conquer, but then to turn around and call themselves occultists and do occult work, but occult work that they learned from the melanated people, right? Is that part. So all of these, you guys like to talk about these Rockefellers and DuPonts and all of the other energies out in the universal soul, the Vanderbilts, they all learned their energies from melanated people and then basically stood on the shoulders of our melanated people. There's so many contradictions going on. I was looking at something that said the first black man to go to Harvard was like 1870. And I said, but wasn't the Civil War just over here? That's contradicting. And more as you research, I'm going to come to the conclusion that there's a difference. They keep talking about the supposed free slaves. Nah, the time frames are not adding up. Those are not free slaves. Those were the American black men and black women. That's the American people. And they brought in other energies to be enslaved. And the American black people got too comfortable with mixed company over here and they conquered them. That's what it appears to be. Because the timelines are not adding up. It's just not. And because I'm seeing more and more of the black culture that was wealth or aristocrats, elite, before slavery, after slavery, and in the middle of. And instead of them saying who they are, they'll say that they are free slaves. No, they're not, right? So when we talk about the secret society, as black people, we had already created our secret society before the takeover, before the conquer. Okay? So this energy that they're talking about now, they saying that none of these motherfuckers are part of the secret society. They only get paid by the secret society. So what that means is that Beyonce was absolutely right in her song when she said that, you know, that some Illuminati, I forgot whatever song that is. She's right. She's just a paid peon. All of these people are peons. And they could get kicked out very quickly or not paid anymore. We don't want nothing to do with you niggas anymore. So then now we're seeing the struggle. We're seeing the sponsor. The sponsors are paying, right? We're just talking. We're just seeing the what's up. We're just looking at some energies. As things progress, we need to understand some things. Religion. The first thing they attack is the religion, right? During the pandemic, our religion was attacked. That's what they did in the Bible. They did that in the New Testament. They attacked the religion, they broke it apart to put people underneath the new cult. And even when the apostles was walking around, they were introducing us to the new cult. But the cult did not incorporate God. The cult was the cult of Jesus. And Peter and John were a motherfucker in it. The apostles were a motherfucker in it. And then we had a new soul. And not the soul from the Old Testament, but a new soul that turned into Paul. And they're reminiscing. What is going on? They straight using the Bible on us, right? Behind the scenes, they took religion away from black people. They took Christianity away from black people. They told us that Christianity is the white man, but here's the difference. Black people understand the spirit, but white people understand the language because they air and fire. They don't have spirit to them. During the pandemic, they sent infiltrators and informants into the church. They did that shit in Africa because they wanted to understand the spirit. They want to understand what are they pulling from. So then all them Chinese and shit who was up in there sanctified, all they did was go back and tell whosoever, this is what they believe in, this is the philosophy, because Asians understand Christianity differently. But it's not in the spirit, it's philosophical. And through the philosophical energy is manifestation, where black people understand the spirit and pull from the spirit. That's how we manifest and make our money and our coins and our well-being. But they've created an energy where they studied us and they're using the Bible against us. So therefore, our idols are wrong. We are idolizing the wrong energy. So therefore, for example, if they're up here saying to us, your husband is God. Your husband is God. Well, if my husband is God, then that means he's my idol. And no matter what rules he put forth, I can't break him. I can't break it because he is my idol. He is enforcing the rule. The president, executive orders, the president, he's beating in our heads who he is. So therefore, if we want to work against him, we can't because our idol is wrong. We're idolizing him. And he is considered also the apostle. So therefore, in the spirit, if God is before us, who could be against us? So he is saying for our well-being, he's making decisions. So if God is before us, how can we unbind anything that he puts before us? So therefore, if somebody comes in and tries to unwrap Trump, they can't because we idolize him. Even though it clearly says that Trump is the former president. So they're playing biblical games with us and using our own energies against us, and then hired Paula White, the appropriator, who then stole her energy from black women. And that's why in the White House, we're seeing them singing spiritual hymns and doing all this shit and having prayer warrioring. Because what we used to do, they have removed it from us and now they're using it. But it's not working out the way they want to, but they're using it as abuse of power. Because it shows that Paula White is a Taurus, but technically she's an Aries. So remember I told you there's an Aries woman running the world? See that energy? And see the executive orders? Because technically Trump turns into an Aries and associates himself with that. The Cancer, Elon, who should not have been in the White House, and I don't understand why people didn't step up to that one, is underneath both energies. He was overstimulated. So, for example, since the pandemic, Black men been on this energy of this spiritual frequency of yoga and feminizing themselves. But back then, they used to sing gospel. Gospel usually healed the Black man. Music heals the Black man. But now they have deflected and changed the scope of art from music into fashion. So the Black man is not getting his feed because he needs to feel, a Black man need to feel the vibration in his soul to heal or to move the negative frequencies. And then you have this new team that's talking about semen retention, and you can't even vibrate in your soul within a voice because they're changing the structure. I don't think you guys understood that part, right? So when it comes up to religion, we most definitely have to watch because they're playing a cold game with God and who we consider as an idol. So the sponsors paid Black Excellence, which is the conscious community, which is this new church, which is these new type of niggas. I'm not Black Excellence. I will be under Boule, a bougie chic bitch. Okay? So when I'm looking at this energy, we have to keep in mind what they enforcing and pushing in. First of all, they push in all of this Eastern religion and all this temple shit. And you see where the Hare Krishnas and the monks are getting busted for drugs and meth. No, they were mules, and they've been mules, and they've been doing dope up in their temples. And they've been making dope up in their temples. But there's something else that has come in and now banishing them. They're getting rid of monks. When I seen the mixed company people, the Indians, go into those type of countries and step on their fucking idols, their statues, their Buddhas, I knew something was up. Then that's when I started seeing the busting of the monks. They've been doing that. See, you people get all bamboozled when it comes up to meditation, and I'm not about to argue with you. Most of the time, you got to drink alcohol or you get high. And when these yogis and Hindelsons and want to sit up there and tell you we are above average, we are 25 dimensions and 20,000 down, they on dope. That's why we see Erica Badu and them looking like they on PCP and shit and looking real aged, right? So we have to be careful on some things. The interesting thing about it is that I was telling someone, I was talking about San Francisco, and I was like, I said, it's very interesting how San Francisco doesn't get the respect that it deserves. I said, San Francisco is a satanic witchy town and always been. Some people believe they call it the town of Scorpio. I call it the town of Pisces. However, do you know how much cult shit and occult shit come out of San Francisco? They'll talk about Los Angeles. They'll talk about Salem. They'll talk about all these other places, but they don't talk about San Francisco. Do you know how many fucking witches I know? White witches, Asian witches, Filipino witches, Latino witches, for sure Black witches, Christian Black witches, Catholic. Do you know how much devil worshiping and satanic energy that goes on in San Francisco? And people sleep on that. Do you know the connections that San Francisco had between New York and Los Angeles? Los Angeles is more ritual. I always call San Francisco the oath. I remember I remember not telling someone, but I did talk about this. I remember when I was a kid, there was a candle store over there on Hay Street. And I remember going there with my mom. Because my mom, she would always do occult stuff, right? So anyway, when we went into the candle store, I was looking at this man, and he was with another man. And I remember the man that I was looking at, he looked like one of those Joker cards, with the straight face and the black, kind of the black hair or whatever. You know, kind of a certain look to him, right? And my mom was not feeling him. And so then I was like, And I kept staring at him and staring at him, but my mom seemed to know who he was, but I didn't, right? And I was looking at the other man, but they were talking to the clerk person at the candle store. So then later on, my mom was like, that man that you see looked like he have sex with bleeding dogs. And then she made me do the Lord's Prayer, right? And I was like, huh? And that was like what? Maybe like, here I go, 79 about 81. About 1981. And I was like, as time progressed and I seen and remembered who that man was, that was Anton LaVey and Steve Jobs. And that's when I learned that Steve Jobs was doing that Apple stuff, right? And I was like, oh my damn. Because I see Anton LaVey again at another candle store on the Visadero, and I don't know if it's called Sacred Eye. It was on the Visadero. Was that where Oak and the Visadero, that cross over there? And I was like, oh, I think now, at the time, I don't know what it is today, but I think it turned into an antique store, that candle store. And you know, it was just what it is, but that was San Francisco, right? So then when I went to City College, remember I was going for sex therapy. However, I was interested in satanic energies with children. And it was the study I was doing in psychology, because they were studying what happened in Los Angeles at the daycare. And they said it was accusations of satanic sex and molesting children. So that was a very big case in the 80s. And actually they got off. They said it wasn't true. It was crazy. But you can clearly see that the workers were practicing devil worshiping. It was so clear. Okay? And so I wanted to study that, because in the later research, they end up talking to those kids, and the kids, of course, now adults or young adults, had dissociative disorder. Okay. However, there was another case that was very similar to it in San Francisco Presidio. And with that one, it was accusations of sexual assault in a daycare. And the kid, I don't believe it was a daycare, or was it like a first grade, whatever, but I think it was a daycare. However, that one was very interesting, because I remember those kids, allegedly the accusations was sexual infection. Like some of them had allegedly chlamydia, accusations of AIDS, shit like that, testing, you know. So I said, Now the person that was ahead of that was Michael Aquino. Okay. So at that point, with my research, I wanted to join the Satanic Church, because I believe that's how I could get to him, because I wanted to interview him, because I thought he was interesting. However, I was working for a lady who was also in that world, but knew his wife, Lilith. Whole big old San Francisco for you. So anyway, I ended up joining the Satanic church thinking I can do that, which that was a whole other energy, but I was at the wrong place. However, when I talked to her, then she connected me to him. Okay? So anyway, with that energy, we met in San Francisco on Alamo Square. And this was in the late 90s. I recorded his energy. I was asking him questions. But where I got confused is, was he, I'm going to say satanic, or was he into Egyptian frequency? Because he merged it together, then he went into metaphysics. And I'm like, and he would never answer the question in reference to what I wanted to know was the case. And then he was reading me and then told me that I was not going to be a clinical psychologist, that I was going to be a psychologist on the astral plane, and that and that my past life, I was Cleopatra. I said, this nigga here. I remember that shit. Okay. So then so remember when I said he from San Francisco, Los Angeles to New York? I already knew about Southern California practicing the Egyptian shit, but he said he was a little discriminatory. He talked about New York. And he talked about practicing Egyptian culture. Because in San Francisco, especially in the 80s, there was an Egyptian movement, but it was among white people. But it was under his temple which was called Set. So his philosophies were very interesting because then he mentioned the people in New York. And how he said how he taught the teachings to Dr. York, and he said, and some other people. And I was like, you understand? I could write a book on this shit. What? So today, when we see all of this comedic shit, and you guys may have been under Dr. York or whosoever, thank Michael Aquino. Thank the temple of Set. Look it up. And look up, and people think he's crazy and all that shit, but I've met the man, talked to him. It's confusion, but it's the same energy of the trail of what Dr. York was doing. And the teachings are the same shit that you had seen with Blue Pill and Red Pill and all them niggas. Same thing. Erykah Badu and them sitting in the dame pyramid, and it's that shit. It's the philosophies. They just don't want to talk about it. They'll say that I'm crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Maybe you don't know where them philosophies came from. Because you guys are quick to say, well, you know, it's black people and we know this and we know that. Look, there's a whole lot of shit that's being put out here. And you'll be surprised. Just like, you know, the upside down cross. Upside down, that's the man. Upside, that's woman. Be careful even how you point your cross. Because that's your God, right? As I was talking about Paula White, something is very interesting. I thought to myself, I said, how do I know Paula White didn't come from Jim Jones, the cult leader? Because she acts like them people, right? Anyway. As I'm talking about agendas, we have to very much be careful out here. You know, they more and more are attacking our youth, and we're not even peeping that a lot of this started after the pandemic, and they took away a lot of resources. What is so fucked up, they created this cult called the YNs. I'm not going to say they gangs. I'm going to call them a cult, because they are created from somewhere, and it is an intentional frequency, right? And they putting their asses in jail under RICO doing 30 and 40 years. We better watch the money. What is sponsoring that, right? But here's something I seen, and it was a spiritual constituent's nephew. He went and signed with some Muslims, with some Muhammads. I'm not being rude, I'm just calling it like it is. And this was in Dubai. He signed a record deal. And the thing, and his uncle was like beside himself. I said, oh shit. And I said, that's what they're doing. They're signing with these Muhammads, and they're getting caught up in shit. And it's a bigger energy, because the music signing is just a cover up, right? So we have Muslim men from the Middle East investing in the prison system, and then sit up and have the audacity to employ our young men to work for them just to be incarcerated. And then our young men get caught up on RICO and traffic charges, and then go to jail for 30 and 40 and 50 years so they can receive a fucking return on their investment. And then their women is left out here on their lonesome, so then pull them in polyamorous and Muslim relationships, and then lie to them and say, well, you need to be with us because you don't make enough money, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. And we're hearing black women follow that bullshit, so much so that now common law is in effect, so they can have how many ever women that they want to have. Get the fuck out of my face with that shit. I said, when did all of this happen? When did our black men become so ignorant? Social media killed it. I said, if a man is sitting up there looking at drink champs, you a bitch. If you on social media day in and day out, you a bitch. I understand streaming, I understand teen shit, but if you just own it, and your life is looking at something that's hella fictitious, there's something wrong there. That's an agenda, right? And it's like they're building up all these cults, right? What's also very interesting, again, we're talking about cult shit. Are white women, why are they just now talking about these white women being abusive and murderers? They were talking about some shit jumping off in Africa. We've been knowing how they get down. Do you understand? It is a whole racket to adopt black children. That's why you see Sandra Bullock and that Chartice, wherever chick, and Madonna. Those are all discriminatory, racist ass women. Right? That's why I was trying to tell black women about their breasts. Don't cut your breasts off, because white women are very much infatuated. That's strength, that's power, that's mental, right? And everything is a damn agenda, period. Then I was minding my business. I was looking at ASAP Rocky. And I was listening to that song, Praise the Lord. Then I noticed them all up in the room like a prison. I said, what is up with all these niggas? Yeah, we gonna talk like that. What's all these niggas hanging together? Then we have to wonder why they sneaky. Where's the females? Where are the women? Too many niggas in one room. Ugh. What y'all in there summoning Daunt? In there summoning Daunt spirit, right? I'm saying all that to get to this. My spiritual constituents went to school in London in the fashion world. And she talked about the agenda that we're missing, right? Apparently, Black American history is not real. We don't have a history. We don't have a culture. They're not clocking for us anymore. And what she explained to me, it is being pushed by white gay males. And they are obsessed and infatuated with Eastern culture and Slavic culture. Okay? And I found that very interesting. I said, what? What are you saying? And she was like, look, they out here perpetuating and supporting and giving scholarships only to Indians and Slavics to go to schools and to go to high-end fashion schools. They don't want to hear shit from no American woman, no American Black woman, and they only want to, they may tolerate Black men. She said it's a fucked up ass agenda, and it is pushed out to perpetuate a stereotypical culture. So when we're seeing these people now coming out with these stereotypical fashion designs, okay? So for example, like PDF came out with prison wear. When we seen the Latino designer and he came out with that El Salvador and they're wearing white tops and the shorts, okay? It is intentional. She says she was supposed to design hypersexual Black women wear. And she said she didn't do it, and she didn't end up winning, I guess, this certain fashion show or contest. She said they did pick an American woman, but she was Nigerian. She said they'll only hear you if you're from Africa or from the Caribbean islands. So that makes a lot of sense to why they are intentionally getting rid of American Black history, because they're trying to say we don't have a history. And she said they all up in the assholes of the Indians, and the Indians saying, oh, in Sri Lanka is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I said, oh, for real? I said, I know white men have always been infatuated with India. But the conscious community groomed us for that shit. They groomed us and made us get under all these other religions. I got caught up myself. And I had to get my ass up out of that shit. Because that's the wrong God for me. So I was like, what in the world, right? And she kept going on and on. And she said it's like a sleeper cell. It's like spell work. They're being funded. They're being funded to take out the Black Americans. And that is why they keep changing the scope, acting like we don't exist. In the UK, they didn't took the UK over. She said she couldn't even find a job there due to the Indians and the Muslims. I was like, what the heck? And in the UK, the people, the original people of the UK, well, we don't know because they didn't killed Europe anyway, the real Europeans. But the people of the UK can't even afford London because they didn't took over everything. So now they playing games in the fashion world, because she said what it is that there's no more music. Now it's just fashion. That's why you're seeing Pharrell and the rest of these people, A$AP Rocky and all of that. It's going to be focused on fashion. And that's why we're seeing all of these restaurants and stuff like that, fashion restaurants uproot. Because they want to steal the culture and create an agenda and create. So that's why we see in Lizzo dancing shit and act sluttish. It's gonna be a noise because they doing the backyard at fucking early in the morning. This is why all this is happening, right? Eunuchs, gay men, and she's saying they're nasty, but there's an investment, there's an agenda. And I said, damn, so that taps back into them financing them to restructure America into corporate entities. I'm hearing they're up here restructuring businesses so people can get rid of employees. They're over here, engineers and shit, restructuring everything. And the ass kicker where America is fucked up is there were certain jobs that needed to be fulfilled, but Americans couldn't fulfill the jobs because they educated the Indians to come in. So they're fulfilling the jobs, and then they're getting over here fulfilling the jobs, hiring their own people. Then when they hire their own people, they close out the job, they make it more difficult where you can't get to it. That's why it's so difficult for people to find a job, because they trying to make the American people work up in fucking warehouses. So they kept minimalizing the job, and then now their hands is on the educational world. Now we have to understand, are these Indians the slaves because they replacing them? Because they replaced the Latino people now with these Indians. Because you got to remember, there's a secret door, there's a secret society that's financing all of this, right? So we need to understand some things. When that fire happened in Hawaii, you guys, we guys, all of us, we better watch that, because there are Indians in Hawaii that has taken over. I said, bitch, did they burn down that part of Hawaii so they can buy up the property? Why am I seeing Indians in freaking hospitality in Hawaii? This is outrageous. That's why I said they need to repeal that Asian hate law. So not only are they invested in fashion, they are invested in our daily lives and now in education and just around the world. And they are creating fucked up stereotypes, and they are pushing that in the media, since they are the now in the media. They are the executives in the media. So when I was just talking about all that shit about basketball wives and getting down to the root, that's, now you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm talking about religion? Black people need to understand their position and who they are spiritually. That's why I was talking about San Francisco and how San Francisco is satanic. I remember when I was a kid, I went to a shut-in. And when I went to that shut-in, my pastor was one of those famous, it's called like a famous pastor, that have all the entertainers come. Well, on our shut-in, James Cleveland came in addition to Edwin Hawkins. We had to go up in Prince Hall, and we was up in there singing, and then we had the chaperones who were the mothers of the church. What kind of shit was that? Now, I don't know what happened afterwards, but we, you know, shut-ins, it's like a sleepover. I could write a book about all this shit. The things I picked up, what I see, what I know. James Cleveland. That shit right there is a whole religion. And that's what they're scared of. And that's why they had the pandemic dissolve that type of spirituality. And due to that happening, they intentionally analyze our children. They analyze our young men and then put them under this energy. Come work for us. Come sell for us. Then get caught up. Now, if you get caught up, either you take your ass to jail or you just become an entertainer. Glorilla. You don't know what any of this shit is about. That's why I was saying, what is all this fighting? What is Zeus? What is all of this? It's spell work. The white women aren't any better because they want to be all up in black women ass. They want the spirit. That's why they like mammies and the madams. They're going to attach themselves to some black women. White men don't give a fuck. They just want their own existence. You see that they're trying to build up their own town in Arkansas. I said good for them. Maybe it'll cut down on the fucking cockhold shit and perversion among black men. Shit. And you're like, but does this have something to do with gay white men? Well, that's what she pointed out. And I said, you know what? White men are the sleeper cell. And gay white men are the sleeper cell. Just like Jeffree Star is a sleeper cell. He on to Cholowettes now. The Cholowettes are all angry because he's doing Cholo makeup. I said, please, Cholos or Cholowettes. That's indigenous makeup. Do you understand they are intentionally causing war between American blacks and Africans? Do you understand that shit in New Orleans with the Zulu was a setup, and they up there coaching South Africans to battle? South Africans, they never did no shit like that. Because first of all, Zulu came from America and they went and shipped you to Africa. If you don't know, you wasn't originally there. This is recycled bullshit that they've been doing for centuries and decades. And you always have a motherfucking backdoor family cult, finance and all of this. And all that, and the only thing that didn't happen is we don't need you niggas anymore. We could just replace you with these motherfuckers here. Go over there with your niggas and figure it out. So this is why you see all these Beyoncés and Lizzos that fell from, as they say, fell from grace and underneath bullshit. Because they don't want to pay for them anymore. The whole Indian culture is made up. They done stole from everybody. Who is it? The Bow people? And you see how dark they are with kinky hair? I said, ooh. And they talked about how they wiped them all out. These are nothing but Moors. Muslims are Moors. Indians are Moors. They just walk around like fucking gypsies. When you go back to the Bible, that's all they was doing, was walking around like gypsies, especially in the New Testament, gypsies. The New Testament is scary because it's so homosexual. It's gay as hell. It's masculine. And I'm not being homophobic. I'm saying, now let's reread that and you can understand some things. That's why there's so much confusion. That's why these people losing weight and shit, skinny as fuck, right? Remember have you guys ever studied Saint Laurent? The designer Saint Laurent, how he hate fat women? And the industry is very skinny. They want you like Gia, the model Gia, who's on heroin, who ended up getting AIDS. Isn't Marc Jacobs? Isn't he the one that keep clanking nails? It's an agenda, and it's being paid for, right? They out here creating a scene of hoax and crisis so they can create a generation and a genre and an energy. That's why it's all this executive order, force, this happened, that happened, Greg Abbott, you can't have water breaks, no jobs, sadness, depression, black people ain't shit, YNs, crazy religion, then all this shit. White people want dope. You're taking out for the count. What the fuck? They're calling you niggers. They're doing that. They coming to a damn jail with a nigger bat. Oh, man. You don't know where to look. It's a crisis. It's a crisis to create a new generation, a new genre, a new energy, to cause despair. That means we're looking at the wrong God. Did you hear about that shit with Louis Vuitton? The Asian people, I don't know if they're Asian, going to the Netherlands, doing money laundering, washing money with Louis Vuitton purses and sending back to Hong Kong and China. Did you hear about them talking about that allegedly Beyonce's whole tour is about money washing and laundry and doing money laundering, allegedly? You know what's very interesting? Everybody keep making a big deal about this Ralph Lauren, Martha Vineyard energy, right? And the black people who are living in Martha Vineyards. That's total propaganda. I looked at that shit. I was so disgusted. Because what I found very interesting, that this rooted after Malcolm Jamal Warner death. Because remember, Malcolm Jamal Warner was considered a schoolboy. He was dressed like a schoolboy. Kind of in with Ralph Lauren tops and shit like that. Right? Did we forget that? And in the 80s and 90s was the whole schoolboy theme. Did we forget about that? And all they doing is giving us recycled clothes from the shit we used to wear in the 80s and 90s. Black kids was already dressing like that, without it being aristocrat. I come from a bougie chic family. We wasn't dressing all like that. But black people have always dressed. So I don't know what this approval from Ralph Lauren is. Because I need to ask some questions about this. I need to understand, why is it they keep talking about Ralph Lauren when they know fucking well Ralph Lauren stole from Bobby Garnett and the whole energy. Bobby Garnett, look it up, look up his fashions. He was not inspired by Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren was inspired by him because he stole his whole shit and then monopolized on it. Then you got black colleges with the audacity to wear Ralph Lauren shit. Oh, why? Because he's donating money, but you're not going to acknowledge the energies where he stole it from? Black people have been going to the inkwell. Orange County was a whole dang inkwell until they was playing around with that redlining. My grandmother and them had shit up in Napa. What are you talking about? Black people have always designed and created their own fashion sense. They don't need help. That's culture. That's custom. We are American black people. That's who we are. And yes, the church was connected to it. How in the hell can you say that black people don't have a culture? Then you have, that's why I talked about Louisiana and the beating and more, and certain energies and aspects. What kind of games are they playing here? And those people, and they were talking about that our grandmothers and this and that is there. And I started really looking, I said, no, they're playing in our faces. They're playing in our faces. What is that? When I went back and looked at the clothing, I said, why they have the kids dressed like a lawn jockey? Why everybody dressed like Jim Crow? Why are the women dressed like slaves? I said, why are the men wearing what I'm about to call them cocktail suits? But I said, but why are they dressed like servants and butlers? And then say it's aristocrat. Do you understand that was subliminal? That's because y'all don't study. I study fashion for real, for real. And they playing in our faces right now with that whole, their tuxedos. Ooh, their tuxedos. I said, that don't look like a regular just fitted tuxedo. That look like something that a butler will wear or a servant. Then I really examined the kids in that whole ad. I said, that straight up looked like a lawn jockey. They straight under Jim Crow. They playing in our face. Then you wonder, well, why are you saying the women dress like slaves? I said, because they're wearing all that white and shit. Cut it out. Stop playing in our faces. Stop acting like that you gave us culture, right? Ozzy Osbourne died, huh? Here I go again. Here's a story, San Francisco. Between 78 and 79, there was a fair on Haight Street. Probably going towards that, it wasn't McDonald's at the time, but going towards Golden Gate Park. Anyway, on the way there, we stopped. Again, 78, 79. My mom started talking to someone. And my brother was like, oh my gosh, my older brother, oh my gosh, this and that, da 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 da. So I was like, who are these people? Okay? So my mom, I realized, was talking to Santana. Okay? So my brother was talking to these two white people. Because at the time, my brother, he played bass, keyboard, sing, all that, you know. And I don't know if at this time he already had his band, or because I know my mom used to sing in the band with my brother, so I don't remember the years of all that was happening. Okay, so anyway, I think my brother, I don't know, because he had a band called Stash, so I don't know if it was being formed yet. I don't remember, or maybe it was already. Anyway, we were all going to the festival on Haight Street because my grandmother lived not that far from Haight, so we walked. So just to say all that, where we were at, my mom stopped and talked, and she was just like really giddy talking to Santana. But I at the time, now I look back, that's who that was. And I said, oh shit, oh my damn. So anyway, my brother was talking to these two people. And so anyway, the two people he was talking to looked very interesting. Like I said, the white men. And there was some other people around, but hey. So anyway, the white guy was cool or whatever. And later on that night, I heard he and my mom was talking, and my brother said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I met Ozzy Osbourne and Led Zeppelin." I said, And so later on in life, I mentioned it to him. I said, "Do you remember meeting?" He was like, "Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne and Led Zeppelin." And I said Led Zeppelin, it wasn't the full group, it was just like that one, but it was a whole thing, and that's how Hate Street was. But that brief time, kind of seeing him or whatever, cool person. So it's very interesting of the frequencies with Ozzy Osbourne. But what I will say is he's at rest. He's at rest, and he's not coming back. And I respect the death, and I respect how he went out. But I will admit, I don't think that was him in that concert, because I'm looking at it, I said, "I don't look like him." And I'm saying this because I'm like, I seen his features, and I understand people change, but nah. But I get what they did. And I said, no wonder somebody in my comments said, I thought Ozzy Osbourne died. I said, I know they all got deported, but his soul is gone, is at rest. However, his life force has been transferred. I believe it's transferred into Travis Scott, me personally. Shit, it might be feeding the fashion industry the way Rick Owens is moving on up. And they keep focusing on Rick Owens. So much so my son even peeped him, right? I'm waiting to see what Joan Baez and Bob Dylan do when they did. Because they was summoning. They up there talk about pray for Phil Collins and LaToya Jackson. I said, Was also very interesting, Hulk Hogan, he's a dead. I found that very interesting. I said, oh, well, I have nothing to feel. I just remember him as a wrestler growing up. Some of you people all in your feelings because he didn't call y'all knickers and shit. That's just a humiliation ritual. They all do that. Okay? That's humiliation. That's what they do. Paula Deen and shit did it, and all the rest of them. That Irish actor did it. That's ritual. That's all. Nothing to be offended about. I respect the fact that white people are not holding him accountable to motherfucking thing or to task. Mel Gibson. You remember when Mel Gibson was going off? And remember earlier I was talking about Sandra Bullock. Most actors are racist as a motherfucker. Most entertainers, white entertainers, are racist as a motherfucker. I don't give a fuck. Don't y'all sit in your houses calling them peckerwoods and honkies? White bitches, allegedly. Because we're not going to sit up in here and play. White people don't hold their people, as they say, accountable. Anyway. We're just having a conversation, right? I had an interesting phone call. Very quick one. And it came out of Costa Rica. Right? The person in Costa Rica who called was a woman, and she called herself Yemaya. And she said the black people that are currently there are not the natural people who were born there. She said they got there under, she said, the community. And she said they move around from Central to South America, then into the Eastern countries. She brought up to me, and I'm just looking at the notes because I had to write it down. She brought up to me Malcolm Jamal Warner. And what she said was, it's deceptive. She said his daughter wasn't there. He never swam in the Caribbean Sea. She said, pull up the Costa Rica news. You will see opposite. And you will see that he was at the airport by himself. That other report is conflicting. They said his father has never been in his life, and they're trying to say that his father does not exist. That call came in on July 26th at my time, 6:50 a.m. The person also said, Bill Cosby is not coherent. Money struggling. No more money to be made. What she explained is that during that time of that Me Too shit, they couldn't make any more money off of him, so they brought up some cases on him, summoning some cases, which that would make books, Netflix shows. That made money. Putting him in jail made money. Just like Puff Daddy is making money. So when they can't make money off of you anymore, they'll allegedly bring up your old crimes, or bring up shit, or summon shit, or accuse you of something that you may not have done or did, and then create a whole case out of it and make money. And that's why he got caught up. The reason why she's telling me that Bill Cosby is incoherent, because she said Tariq Nasheed did not talk to him. And all of this is allegedly. She said he's been kicked out. Okay? She's saying that look at the codes, and the codes is, was it asphyxiation and riptide? She said this made up wife is from the community, so basically the ranch. She said his body is not in Costa Rica. So this is all allegedly. This is coming from a person who is allegedly in Costa Rica. And the area code, it said, let me see, X506. Is that how that goes? 506? That's what, and I'm not going to give you the other information. I've been telling y'all that that whole case with Malcolm Jamal Warner is very questionable. I fell in a rabbit hole, right? But let me say this really quick. I'm finding some things very interesting, because I did receive another call. the Black Excellent crew is kind of telling on themselves. So you have Tariq Nasheed that sat up there and said that he died on the Caribbean side of the game. You have Umar Johnson that we don't know if he's a doctor or not, because you know they up there and lie and say that they doctors, just like Dr. Sebi and Dr. Maya Angelou. And we know Maya Angelou ain't got education at first. She just have honoraries. And we still are out to lunch with Umar. So he gave shout outs to Costa Rica, talking about the Black Indians in Costa Rica. Said, and he shouted out everybody except for California. I said, that's fucked up. And he was like, they froze my account. I said, nigga, you got mental health issues. You have psychosis, and we know it. And your father said you had the psychosis a minute ago, right? So we're gonna stop that playing with you. So he wanted donations, and he gave all these names for the bank account, because you know his school is abandoned over there. That's a whole lie. But I'm like, why are people like clowning him when you know that man is mental? You know he has a psychosis. I knew he had a psychosis when he read the name on the damn account. This is what he said. Let me see here. He said Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, Gaddafi Prince, Malcolm X, Peter Pan, Dr. Seuss, Willie Lynch, Bobby Hemmett, Dick Gregory, Dr. Sebi, I'll be sure, Snoopy, Afeni Badu Muhammad, and Young Pharaoh. He said that account was frozen. Then he said his second account was frozen, which was the account with the name of Phyllis Hyman, Jazzy Jeff, Will Smith, Jill Scott, Jaguar Wright, Billy Porter, Jasmine Sullivan, Coleman Domingo, and Benjamin Franklin with some pendergrass. He said that account was frozen. So I'm like, but he shouted out Costa Rica. So we have Tariq Nasheed talking about Costa Rica. I mean, yeah, the Caribbean side. Then you have him shouting out Costa Rica. Then somebody forwarded me spiritual whistleblower. Now, there's something about this spiritual whistleblower. A person hit me up, right? And the person said, spiritual whistleblower, he said, please look at her content. I ask you, please look at her content. She stole the whole stole the whole witch patrol concept and content and just name it narcissist. He said, she studied your content, and then he says she's doing necromancy work, or they're doing necromancy work, or Risha, and trying to see in me. I didn't say this, he did. And he broke down whatever, right? And I said, somebody told me about her before, and I think I talked about her once. But people saying she's autistic. I said, I hope I'm not autistic, bitch. Shit. You gonna talk about you reading into the motherfucker? So I went and I looked at her content, and I will absolutely say that person is absolutely right. She's a total thief. She is on old school witch patrol behavior and content. Okay? It's like as if she studied the old shit, and a lot of the shit is not even there anymore. I mean, it's been through some energies. And I said, oh, They back, they're back at this again. Stealing. They stealing. That's what they do. They steal. And so when I listened to what she was saying about Kobe Bryant and Malcolm Jamal Warner and all of that mess, I said, what? Because it didn't match, because on a simple fact, she's trying to blame them for basically putting their kids in harm's way. But what is very interesting, what she was saying about Kobe Bryant, that he was told not to get on the plane. What are you talking about? How do you know he was told not to get on the plane? I heard about that, but how did you know? Because it was very clear he got on the plane because his daughter was supposed to be sacrificed, not him. But he got on the plane. He got on the supposed helicopter. But however, his arm was missing and leg. When you read the autopsy, they couldn't find it anywhere. It wasn't burned. It was nothing. So why is he a narcissist? And why do women have to hold him accountable? And why do black people have to hold him accountable? For what? Hold ourselves accountable. So then she started talking about Malcolm Jamal Warner. I said, he didn't do shit. Are you mad because he's boule? Or alleged boule? His mom has always been his handler. Isn't she an agent? She always been in all his shit. And then she brought up Regina King, that he kicked them out. Well, we don't know what's going on with that. And so what if he was a whoremonger? Because there's people who don't like Regina King because they're accusing her of sacrificing her son. And these are people who went to school with her son. And there's industry people who kind of like, So that's still out to lunch. So we should hold him responsible for what? So it kind of reminded me, I said, is she trying to be like a opposite, like a shock jock? Because I know who used to do that. And this is supposed to be her content, but I'm going to speak on it like, yeah, you're a thief. Yeah, I can see the work. Yeah, I see what's going on. It just means that you're just not creative. And that's okay. And I'm not, and check this out, I'm not about to go back and forth with her either. Because I can see these people are like gypsies. They create their own world and keep going around in the same circle. And black people go for this. That's why we have other people coming in monopolizing us. Right? Social media killed the rock star because you get people like this always trying to eat off your plate. She shouldn't be at the same table as me, so we got to kick her out. She got to go sit at the little kids' table. Allegedly. All this is all alleged. I'm not being rude. I noticed that this cult reminds me of Jim Jones, right? It reminds me of a situation that I'm going through right now of battling of the experts. And I'm going through a situation right now, and it's a nature boy case that I'm in. But there's an issue with me because they believe that I'm a cult leader and I'm an extremist. The person who they want on the case, per se, is this person named Rick Ross, who's a deprogrammer, who testified in the Nature Boy case. But what cracked me up is that Nature Boy's team questioned him down, his attorney, and he had no certificates, no educational background, nothing. He just have these, I'm going to say, these books that are most likely they're ghostwritten. And that's an expert. And that's when I learned people like me, and I'm black, I'm not an expert. I'm considered an extremist and a cult leader. He's considered, because he's white and have some books behind him, an expert. That means Bobby Hemmett is considered a cult leader and extremist. Dick Gregory, a cult leader and extremist, but not respected as an expert. They may talk to him. Do you know how bad it is in this universe that they try to rep Jaguar right? That lets you know the sensibility, right? That lets you know the system. And I had a spiritual constituent say, can you write a book on that, like on some real shit about being black and considered this? Because this is my experience. This is what I'm going through right now. This is what I see. This is what I know. And the energies that you get from people, and this is very serious, because if her team that's working with her and I'm working with her and I know her inside out and the story, and they want to bring in another person, that's serious. And black people and the psychology of our brains is different from white people when it comes up to deprogramming. The shit with Nature Boy, he didn't even know what was going on with Nature Boy on the case. Look him up. And I said, did he interview the other people underneath the cult? Because the person they had testified, I said, he needs to go to jail too, because a lot of those men needed to go to jail of the sexual assault that was going on. But when we looked at the time, well, he got life plus 10 years, I believe. And the person we was talking about it, we were saying he probably had a lot to do with it, with him being a supposed expert. But then it also made me think, did they let you out for a minute and you went back to do life? Like almost like the Twilight Zone. With that mannequin story, she was gone for a month or a year. Then she came back, then it was the other mannequin's turn. It's like they say, hey, you want a little time? I'll give you like 10 years. And you be this cult. Then what we're going to do is arrest you, say you did A, B, C, and D. Then you take your ass back to jail. Because some people, even attorneys, are saying that was overkill, right? But what's very interesting as I'm talking about this, connecting this to Costa Rica, connecting this to, to Malcolm Jamal Warner, to Tariq Nasheed, to this spiritual whistleblower, to Dr. Umar Johnson. We just, have to understand some things of what's going on, right? Because shit out here not looking right. Shit out here suspicious. Because I went back and I listened. Riptide. Riptide is a disconnection of religion. Asphyxiation, smothered. I had somebody silly in my comments said, oh, so drowning is murder? Ask Whitney Houston, she can tell you. Damn. Like Dr. Sebi was discounted as an expert. And I remember as a kid looking at his whole trial. Like something don't seem odd with the whole Dr. Sebi. As soon as he died, then they come out with PrEP. And then in a minute, they're going to come out with a new energy that's going to detox drugs out of people's systems. And that's why they're going to want them in asylums and rehabs. Was he a whole test dummy or what's up? And remember, he wasn't a real doctor. But I remember they were saying he was an expert, but they had him ahead of something after clowning him. And Nature Boy, his whole frequency is just like Jim Jones, the cult leader. And there's a lot of Jim Jones kids that are Gen X and later and early Gen X will say, no, yeah, who are actors and shit in front of your face. That's why I said Paula White. And muling and trafficking. That senator who got shot during Jim Jones, that was odd. And people are not talking about Jim Jones had the same route from Los Angeles, San Francisco, into Mexico, into Central South America. Same route. And they wasn't just like going, they thought it was a retreat. And you guys never thought about who was spending money on that? And that the military was there? But it's the same scenario as Nature Boy, but the same scenario as Malcolm Jamal Warner. They even said he was there because his child was being homeschooled. Then they said she was in the water, not around the water, not upside down in the water. Then they totally forgot about the alleged guy. Then somebody pulled him out of the water. Huh? Now the person who's in Costa Rica is saying he wasn't any kid even there. This is all alleged, but this is in the media. The ass kicker is the Liberia. Have y'all seen Liberia, Costa Rica? Did we forget the history of Central and South America and Mexico, and the white people going to get them, bringing them into the Americas to work in the fields? You don't think that they didn't lie to the Liberians of Costa Rica and then created a whole nother entity in Africa and called it Liberia? And then the original people who are native to that land, like, what the hell are you? And they said, what the hell are you? And then they became volatile and fought each other because some kind of American energy lied to them, saying they was going to go back to Central America. I'm just asking questions. What y'all thinking? And then I started looking at some of these cities in Costa Rica: San Jose, Santa Cruz, San Francisco. I said, that's in the Bay Area. What kind of games they playing with us? The ass whooping was Guadalupe. Didn't we just have a flood, Guadalupe? Then they playing with us. I just said Aries, right? Then was it Blieno's Aries? Well, you look in your head, pretend that I'm speaking Spanish and the accent. Then I'm breaking it down. I said, but this is still is Aries. We don't think something is up, something's iffy. We don't think that any of this is odd. And then when you go and look at the Costa Rica news is different. Then you have people reporting, oh, Bill Cosby and money and this and that and this happening, da 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 da. Are you part of the ranch? Are you part of the cult? Because the real deal, this is not happening over here. Some people, even I kind of think, is he still alive? But I'm looking at the codes. I'm looking at the rabbit hole. I'm looking at the jealousy with Boule people for no fucking reason, and all of this philosophy behind it. I said, fuck it. I'm bougie chic. Fuck it. God damn. Nobody else go through this bullshit but us. Even how we get men, how black women get men is a problem. I be looking at Latino men. Latino men love it when they women go marry billionaires. Our men, nah, bitch, you think you better than me. That's why I say any nigga sit up and look at Kevin Samuels, you a bitch ass nigga. I said, just like that, you a bitch. If your son looking at Kevin Samuels, that's a bitch. Because they learning fucked up behaviors. Black men are fucked up. I look at it, Latino men hype their girls. My daughter getting her master's and PhD, da-da-da-da. I've heard black men say, my daughter, she's in the Air Force and she's going to be a doctor and she wants me to retire and come live with her. I'm like, oh, for real? Great. Oh, fuck that bitch. She thinks she better. This is a true story, and it came from an African man. I hear that all the time about black men saying that about their daughters. Not all, but a lot. White men have a little bit more positive energy towards their kids, but Mexican men, Latino men, hype them up. When they was up there saying Bezo and that lady and Selma Hayek, our men be like, that's spell work. Break that spell. And you don't want to be common law because them niggas are digging your pockets. And I'm just talking because we under this conscious shit, this black excellence. Fuck that shit. They over here tripping with damn Malcolm Jamal Warner. What's going to happen? Some Middle Easterns then bought up the Cosby Show, and now they're going to make money off the streaming. What happened? Some Middle Easterns then have an insurance policy on everybody on the Cosby Show, and I'm just being a little rude about it. But how else are they making their money more than these record companies selling their catalog? These studios selling their catalogs. Because that's a hellified life insurance, allegedly. Making money. Play like he really is missing, and then he living over there in Bali with Ben Vereen, and then collecting on insurance allegedly. Allegedly. We just talking. Anyway, this is Weird Renegade Witches Blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done.